And so SEMA was happening in Las Vegas in October.
End of October.
And I said, hey, do you want to go with me? There's some cool stuff out at Red Rocks, just west of town, and we can kind of figure it out. And then the more I looked at it, I was like, well, it's also real close to the Grand Canyon, and so maybe we road trip this thing and we swing through the Grand Canyon and go see what that's all about. Because as many times as we've done Overland West in Flagstaff and we're so close to Grand Canyon, I've never gone. And in part because my wife was like, hey, you can't go to Grand Canyon without us,
Yeah.
And so I sort of pitched it to Noah, like, why don't we go figure this out together? We'll be light and nimble and we can figure it out, and then we can bring the whole crew back at some point. But since we're close enough, let's go have a little fun adventure. And so then we looked and we start kind of doing some Grand Canyon research. And we read about this rim to rim hike, and we both are sort of talk about it like, would we want to do that?
I was completely intimidated by the idea at first.
Yeah.
I
think I was too.
I mean, I didn't even know that was an option. I'd never thought that people would hike through the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
But I've never explored the idea of backpacking before.
Okay.
Or hiking for that long. So it to be like presented in front of me as a possibility of me going and doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just intimidating.
Yeah, I did backpacking in like late high school and through college, but the kids have never been they have no experience of like camping with everything on your back. Yeah. And so so certainly it's that. And then when you read about the distance, I think it was 26 miles or
26
something, in the elevation. So maybe I can explain rim to rim real fast. The Grand Canyon, more or less, if you're looking at a map, runs sort of northwest to southeast. Just call it east to west or west to east or whatever. So there's a north rim, a high spot, and it's mostly plateaus. When you get out there, you're basically looking at flat land, and then it just falls off into this canyon, which is crazy to see. And so there's a route that gives you the option to go from the north rim and cross through the canyon. You cross over the river, which is running perpendicular to your travel, and then you come up the south rim south wall to the south rim, and you can go either way, and there's a couple different ways you can do that. And actually, if anybody's interested in learning more about how to do that and how to get more information on it, at the end of this I can run through that way we don't bore the conversation now, but if somebody wants to stick around for the end, I can give them all that data. And so we both looked it up and thought, man, 26 miles, like, is this something we can do, and
that was really the biggest question, is if we could do it.
And so you're hiking, but you're hiking with a pack. You've got 30-ish pounds or something on your back. Did we ever weigh our packs?
I think we did.
Something, whatever. You've got tent bags, food, water, all that sort of thing. And so really you can, and some people will go rim to rim in a day. Those people are really in really good shape. And some people go rim to rim in a day.
Wow.
And they're usually running, which is even crazier.
It's like 48 miles or something crazy.
And so, but if you stay the night, you have to get a permit. And the permits apparently take 6 months to find a hole. And it's kind of an old school way of applying. You actually have to fax in your application. You can't email it. This is my guess. It limits the amount of people that are applying. So they don't have just an inordinate amount of people applying with lots of bailouts. So then the other option is that you can get there, and somebody that doesn't show up, you can then take their spot. And sometimes that can take 2 or 3 days where you wait. And so that's really sort of what we thought we were going to have to do. And we were planning the trip based on, let's get there 2 days early. We'll mull around. If we don't get a permit, we can do some day hike type stuff. And but in the meantime, sent in my application, and we sent in different trail routes and campsites you would want to stay at and how to break it out. So I put 2 different requests in, and we got our first one, which was crazy. And we found out, a week before we were going?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was very last minute, I remember that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, that it only...
Great. So that's a great question. We were going at the very end of the season, and the North Rim is less developed than the South Rim. The South Rim is where all the tour buses come up, and there's tons of hotels. They call them lodges, but hotels and lodging and restaurants that are on the South Rim. A lot of highways and everything like that. The North Rim does have a lodge system that it's operated by an independent, but it's on parkland, and that lodge closes. I'll correct it at the end once we go through this, but I think that lodge closes the 14th of October or the 1st of October or something like that. And then once the roads get snowed in on that side, because the elevation's like 9,000 feet, they're just snowed in. You can't get to the North Rim. And so so a little bit of it is a gamble, that, all right, if we go and it gets snowed in, what happens? The weather, there's just a big flux in weather. And so I think that less people apply then. If there's not a holiday, we were asking to do it during the week, right?
I think it was Halloween weekend.
I think we did. Yeah,
I know that.
That's right. It was Halloween also, so we kind of played that into our benefit. We ended up leaving, I think we hiked Sunday and we came out on Monday. We hiked Sunday, Monday. So it's kind of unusual. It's not on a weekend specifically, for people that are like a normal group that would maybe drive in from Flagstaff or Phoenix to hike. It's not like they're hiking Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
And so then you have to work through all the logistics on, you do all these studies on people that have hiked it and what are they doing and what is available there. The first time you do anything, it's a huge learning curve.
Sure.
And so we decided to go from the North Rim to the South Rim. That way, when we finished the hike, we had lodging. We weren't, trying to camp out at the end of our big long hike. And so that's what we did. And it was an incredible trip.
It was. I mean, it's definitely something I'm going to remember forever.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So what, we could certainly talk through like what we did and each step and whatever. I mean, in short, we camped out in the car in the forest.
It's freezing.
Yeah, we woke up, it was 21 degrees. Our perspiration from our breath had frozen on the inside windows of the car. We were sleeping on our Luno mattress, which was pretty great.
Yeah.
And then, we left the trailhead, the North Trailhead at 9 a.m. I think we made breakfast and we arranged some stuff and, took some pictures and, all kind of the basic stuff. We're like, there's no reason to get out real early because we're going halfway through. We ended up staying at Bright Angel Campground, which is basically at the Colorado River. And it was a 14-mile day. And what was our elevation drop?
I can't remember.
Basically, I think we hiked down 6,000 feet, so over a mile. And then over 14.7 miles was the distance.
Day one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And remember when we left the trailhead, like it was still in the 30s or something.
Oh yeah.
And then within I don't know, less than a mile, we started like
shedding all of our layers.
Yeah.
We were getting so hot.
Yeah.
So then we had all this like bulky, heavy stuff that we had to hike out with us the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have jackets and long underwear hanging all over the place. We had all this stuff to keep us warm that we only needed for that very small window, because when you get to the bottom of the canyon, just like when you travel the mountains, the difference in 6,000 feet of elevation is a huge temperature swing.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of the canyon, it was like 85 degrees or something.
It was perfect camping weather.
And I think it got down to 47 or 41 or something that night.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So like 20 degree swings, and you certainly don't need all the stuff that we had. But why don't you
Sign
walk us
up.
through, like, through hiking down and, you know, like, what did you see? What did you think? What did it mean?
Well, hiking. Okay, so when we got to the North Rim, I didn't have any expectations of what it was gonna look like. I like to go in and just have no idea what I'm gonna see. I think it kind of adds to the like spectacularness of it, I guess.
Yeah, a mystery.
Yeah, definitely. And so we show up, and there's just, like my dad described, it was just a plateau, and then it just suddenly drops down. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, I have to hike down that. And so we're walking down it, and I mean, I'm kind of tired. It's not that bad. You just have to make sure you're...
Yeah. You're walking down.
I
You're
don't
really
know.
just following and putting one foot in
Yeah,
the other.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a trail. It's very obvious the trail. You're not trying to guess. You know, there's thousands of people that hike the trail.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of ledges. And I think that was one of the things, is that when we I mean, I jog pretty regularly and exercise and stuff. So I felt like, oh, I'll be fine. But Noah doesn't do that as much regularly. She rides her bike and stuff. But I was like, we need to put packs on. We've got a lot of hills in New Braunfels, so we were like doing hikes with packs on up and down hills, because we knew we were going to be, you know, we're going to have to go down for such a long time, or have to go up for such a long time.
Yeah.
Well, the difference in the impact is that, you know, it kind of slopes down, but then you have these big step offs pretty regularly, and it really, my left knee really didn't like it for some reason, and so it kind of slowed us down. And
Yeah, it can be hard on your joints a little.
yeah, it can be harder on joints, but otherwise the path was pretty
No,
straightforward.
I thought it was
like,
easy. Yeah, we were showing the family some pictures when we got back, and they were like, "Oh, you were hiking on that ledge," and we were like, "Yeah, it wasn't that bad," but it looks much more intimidating in pictures than when you're actually doing it in person.
I think it's like watching a car go really fast down the street and being like, that looks really fast, but you have no idea until you're actually in the car. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That was fast.
Yeah.
For sure. It was the last 5 miles or something, and at that point we were just walking across the canyon. It wasn't like we were going down or anything. Yeah. And there was just switchback after switchback, and our watch was off, so we thought we had like half a mile left when really it was like 2 miles or something. So after every switchback, we were expecting the campsite to be right there, or I was at least.
Well, it wasn't so much a switchback because we weren't going down it, but
yeah.
it was a windy path within a canyon wall, so you couldn't see distance in front of you.
Okay, so
you could see that there was the wall and it was there, and you're like, I bet right around there, because it looks clear on the other side in the sky. That's where it is.
Yeah.
So every time you come around the corner, you're like, no, it was like disappointment.
It was super disappointing.
There's a life lesson in there somewhere.
I was walking behind him, and I was like, I just want to like sit down and never get up. It definitely became more of a mental game those last 5 miles or so, because my body was tired. I was just mentally, I was just done. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this day to be over.
Yeah.
And then we finally got to the campsite, and I just collapsed. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, even kind of in those moments, you know, we had talked a lot about, if you feel a hot spot on your foot, we need to take care of it right away, because a blister is going to be terrible on this thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so as we thought we were really close, I was feeling a hot spot, and I was trying to change how I was walking, because I was like, we're going to be at the camp any minute. I'm not going to unpack my pack and get the first aid out and unblister and all that stuff. And so so then I sort of started, as it went longer, I started walking on the side of my foot, and then I ended up bruising the side of my foot. And so now my right foot was really bothering me a lot. And we actually sort of walked past our camp. There's this, tell them about Panther Canyon.
Panther Canyon, it's like this lodge. I mean, it's not fancy, but it's definitely not something you would expect to be in the bottom of a canyon. I mean, there's cute little cabins everywhere.
Oh.
And there's this creek. It's not very big or anything, but there's a creek running through it, and you have mules being packed in and out. And
interesting.
there's a there's not a restaurant, is there?
I think there's kind of a small restaurant. You can pre-order like a steak dinner or something, and they'll make sure that they have it for you at
there's
dinner time.
Gift shops and stuff.
Yeah. I think it's an old civilian corps project where they built these stone and rock cabins down in the bottom. I mean, they're really tiny, and they've got a fireplace, and I think that's kind of it. Some beds, and the aesthetic of them reminds you just of an old ranch that happened to be
for sure
in a canyon.
Gotcha.
And there's really, the gift shop has like a shirt you can buy and a mug or an Nalgene or something and some stickers, but that's kind of it. And you can apparently the wait list on those is like a year to get in, and so it's really hard to get an actual cabin in the bottom. But I think it'd be fun. And so what a lot of people do is they arrive at South Rim. They ride the mules the 9 miles down the South Rim wall, and then they stay at Panther Canyon. And then the next day they ride the mules back out. And we passed some of the mule trains, and it was pretty awesome. The sure-footedness, of them. It like reminds you of why mules were used to settle the West.
Shameless plug. Yeah.
Shameless plug. But also the reason that we named it PAKMULE.
Literally.
I mean, it's adventurous minds and people looking for some freedom and wilderness and new opportunity, and basically hauling everything they need with them. And it was without the PAKMULE, literally, you can read all sorts of historical stuff. Without the PAKMULE, the West never would have been settled because nobody would have been able to get their equipment and their livelihood over these mountain passes, and it required the PAKMULE because of its sturdiness and sure-footedness. And but everything that comes in and out of Panther Canyon is by mule, so they have mule trains where they load all the food to bring down for a couple days worth of service, any of the gift things, whatever. It's all in and out, and the people that work there have to hike down, which is pretty amazing. They don't ride the mules down because either a mule's carrying something or it's carrying somebody that's paid for it. They don't just have a bunch of extra mules.
Yeah.
So if you work down there, I spoke to one of the folks. They're like, yeah, we have to hike in and hike out. So Panther Canyon was awesome. And, but we stayed at Bright Angels, which is basically connected to Panther Canyon. And on the map, it seemed like it was further apart. And so we start walking by it. It's on the other side of this creek. You have to take a bridge over to it. And we're looking at all these tents. And I'm like, I don't think that's Bright Angel.
There wasn't a sign or anything.
Because it should, there was no sign. It should be separated. And then we kind of get towards the end of it, and I'm like, I don't know. And so I holler over. I was like, what campground is this? And they're like, Bright Angel. And I was like, oh, hey, kiddo, we're here. Let's go back.
Turn around and
turn
go
around.
back.
Let's turn around and go
Man,
back.
So exhausted.
Good thing you asked, though.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we would have gotten to the river in about another half a mile.
Yeah.
And then been like, that must have been it.
Yeah.
But we were so worn out that we were glad we asked at that moment
for
and
sure.
didn't walk any further. And so we pitched a tent and got our stuff going. We ate lots of Peak Refuel meals, which are actually
pretty good.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Everythhy's mixed in like a foil pack, and you pour hot water in it and stir it and then seal it up for 10 or 15 minutes and let it sort of rehydrate and warm. And then
which one's your favorite?
What was that, pesto chicken?
Yeah.
I think it was a
pesto chicken is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is great.
It was all
that
good.
I've had.
They had a good breakfast skillet one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like bell peppers and
Yeah, that's awesome.
There were
potatoes
biscuits
and
in it too.
Biscuits and
they had a biscuit and gravy one that I got.
Oh yeah.
When you're hiking, you're not, you're like, okay, I need energy and I need hydration.
I mean, we had a bunch of Cliff Bars and electrolytes and stuff.
Yeah, so we put electrolyte stuff into our water, and we'd eat Cliff Bars. We were like, all right. We were doing like 2 Cliff Bars between meals just to make sure our body didn't crash, because you don't really know what when your body's not used to walking 14 and a half miles, through that, you're like, well, I really am hauling 30 or so pounds on your back. You're like, I don't want to crash. And I've had that happen to me one time on a bike. It wasn't a race. It was it was the MS-150.
Yeah.
I got towards the end and I felt my body just hit a wall. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what that's like. And so I've always been very, you experience something once. Hopefully you know how to plan around it in the future. And
definitely played the trip on the safe side.
Yeah,
it's good.
And there were like mule deer hanging out, around camp and crossing the river. And I went and soaked my feet in the river, which was freezing. I could only do it for less than 5 minutes because it dropped my whole body temperature so fast. But my feet were so tired and worn out. I was like, I got to do that. And then shower pouch was the other thing that was a huge win for us. Was like having that big old shower towel basically to wipe down and get all the grime and the sweat and the stink off, so you can climb into your your clean long underwear, go to sleep, and climb in your sleeping bag. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because while we were coming down, there was a group of guys that were jogging up, and then they passed us again.
Oh wow.
And I was like, man, what time did you guys leave? And they had left at like 4 a.m. or something, and had come down jogging. Had come all the way across, gone up, and now they were going back. They were doing the rim to rim to rim.
Can't wrap my head around doing that.
Yeah.
No.
I don't see why somebody would want to do that.
Yeah, it's a double marathon with 6,000 foot elevation gains and drops on both sides.
Definitely not something you can just wake up and decide to go do it.
No, it's a monster endurance thing for your
Not
body.
me anyways. Sure. Yeah. Teach their own.
Yeah, so day one, I mean, I think day one was great. I was nervous about my knee and what it was going to do going out, but I slept like a rock.
So did I.
And we're sleeping right by the creek, so you have like the
water
noise coming
like a natural white noise.
Yeah, natural white noise. Mm-hmm. And I was proud of us after day one.
Definitely.
Were you surprised by what you had done?
I think so, yeah. I don't really think I ever completely wrapped my head around what I was going to do until we were like halfway done doing it. And then we finished it, and I was just thinking back on everything that like I had seen and done for the first time just in one day. And I was proud of myself for sure.
Yeah.
So.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
And it was cool to be able to get to do with you, because I know that you had never like seen the Grand Canyon or done anything. So it was a big moment for you also.
Yeah.
Day 2 was definitely much more of a struggle. I hit a point where I started freaking out. It was right at the 4-mile mark, I think. We had just had lunch, and that's when the elevation was really starting to go up pretty fast. I started freaking out. I kept thinking, like, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Because I don't like hills. I've never been one for them. So you're staring up at this giant cliff wall, and you're like, I'm going to have to go up that. And I don't know, it was messing with me.
Yeah.
But my dad just talked me through it, and he kept my mind off of it, and he said, you can do it. And he distracted me, really, which is all that I needed, was just to not think about what I was having to accomplish.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've actually carried with me since then. I mean, if I see something, I'm like, I know I have to do it, and I don't want to, and I'm scared, but I just gotta suck it up and go with it, you know? So I definitely apply that to, like, school and tasks at home and whatever. But, I mean, then we started hiking up, and we were just talking, and, I mean, I was going on about random rants, I feel like, the entire time. But it was just anything to get my mind off of whatever. And I was just looking around at everything, and we had this old couple that was kind of walking with us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They were like 70 years old, and they travel the U.S. in an RV and just go on hikes all the time.
That's humbling.
Yeah. Hike like 2,000 miles a year or something crazy.
Yeah. That's what they said. They hike 2,000 miles a year.
Mm-hmm. I was like, I can't fathom being 70 and doing that, or 80.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at the old people I know in my life, and I'm like, I can't picture you doing that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kansas is looking ahead 30 years. Like,
gotta take care of this money.
Yeah.
he's walking with a limp. Some 7-year-old ladies passing him up.
Oh no, they were definitely passing us.
Oh, they crushed us.
Left us in their dust.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing 2,000 miles a year.
They had hiked down the south rim. There's a split on the south side, so you can come down the South Kaibab Trail and then go up Brian Angel Trail, which is what they did. So when we went into Phantom Ranch that morning to like get a souvenir and just kind of check it out, because when we came in that night to campsite, I really wanted to go see it, but I was so done walking or just wanted to go to bed. So before we left, I was like, let's go mull around Phantom Ranch for 30 minutes and see what it is. And at the time I didn't realize it, but they were down in Bright Angel, and they were all covered up in their goose down and stuff. And and she was laying there, and she was like, "Give me some coffee, Jim."
Just bossing him around.
Yeah, like,
it was Bob. I think it was Bob and Barbara or something like that.
Yeah. And she's like, "I'm just gonna lay here for a minute." And he's like, "Okay, babe," and he goes, and I guess, they figure that out. And I didn't really know if they had camped out, or I didn't realize that they had just hiked down.
Yeah, they just hiked 9 miles.
Yeah, that they had already done.
9 a.m.
Yeah. And so I'll back up a little bit and say, on the way down, there's water stations and you can refill. We also had our own like water filtration system, so we could, we could go to the creek and get water if we needed to. Because there was some conversation about once the weather gets cold enough, they start shutting off the water lines so that they don't break. And so on the way down, on the more remote side, there was water at every station. And so we kept filling up our water. And I was like, all right, since we're climbing out, we've got less weight from food. And so let's manage our water weight too. And so I think we decided, like, keep the bladders empty. We had camel packs in our Mystery Ranch backpacks. Keep those empty. And then every water stop, we'll just refill our Nalgene. We'll drink one Nalgene while we're there, fill it up, so we've got it to go.
No, I thought we put electrolytes in the bladder.
Yeah, maybe. I don't recall specifically. Maybe we drank it. Maybe we drank that water on the way up, and then once we got to the first place, we were like, we'll just keep refilling. It was like Indian campground or Indian feather or something, Indian cottonwood or something like that. But then after that one campground, which was the first one, there was no more water the whole rest of the way up, and I was like, oh no.
Oh.
And so I got kind of nervous about it. So we were sitting at this spot where I'd planned to refill water, and we're kind of talking about it, and then we'll call them Bob and Barbara. We're sort of getting up as they're coming up, and they said, "Hey, y'all can giraffe behind us if you want to," and they were kind of laughing. And I thought they were sort of joking to us, but in seriousness, I said, I think we are just going to hang in behind you and just keep pace with you. And then
I couldn't keep up with them.
They were very talkative, and they were telling us all about their hikes and their travels and riding bikes and all the things they'd done. They had already hiked the Grand Canyon like 2 weeks earlier, and we're back doing some more hiking there. And that's when I realized those were the people we saw on the bottom, because they told us they'd come down. And so we were trying to take pictures and also sort of take it in where they were grinding it out, but they slowly kept getting further ahead of us. And at some point I was like, "Hey, y'all have a great hike. We're going to stay and take some pictures and take a break." But they just completely smoked us.
Oh,
they didn't even look back.
Yeah. All right. Whoa, man. They were on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were looking up at them, and they were...
Yeah, because coming up the south wall, it's a big switchback. Like, it's a wall face almost with switchbacks. And so once you get to a certain point, you can actually start to see the path and see everybody going all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
There's a lot of false peaks too, but you can at least see people up there. But I mean, there were a number of times when we look up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we still have to go to where that person is."
Yeah.
Whoa. It became very daunting. But going up was easier for me. It didn't bother my knee or anything, and so I just kind of pushed through it.
It was harder for me.
Which was good, because I was able to like help
Yeah.
use that extra mental strength and
Yeah.
push it over to her. And so we got to the top, and it was Halloween day, and there was some guy dressed up like a pirate at the top, and he had 2 pieces of candy left, and was like, all right, you get the last 2. He's like, every Halloween for 15 years or something, I've been coming here, and I hand out candy to the hikers coming up to the top. And it was crazy, and it's kind of weird. Some people like to go south to north because you arrive in an area that's more remote, and you've been backpacking, and you've had the solitude. Because when you show up there, and there's people in like flip-flops and hanging out, and they've just got off a tour bus and whatever, it's a little bit like
shocking,
a little shocking,
yeah, good word,
jarring.
Yeah. And so we got a couple pictures at the Bright Angel Trail sign and watched the sunset, and then we were both like, we need a hamburger. And then lots of stretching, lots of foam roller. Again, the next morning, waking up like, I can't move.
Yeah.
I mean, my calves and feet and everything.
Yeah.
We had to get on a bus, 4-hour shuttle, and go back to where our car was.
Yeah, that was another thing, because you can't just drive across the canyon.
Yeah.
You have to go completely around it. So it's a 4-hour car ride to get back on a shuttle. So you have to be in the lobby at 7 a.m. for the shuttle pickup.
Yeah.
And I think they leave at 7:30 or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
But what was cool is to be on the south side. You can, because as you come up, you keep looking back and you can sort of see where you came. So then when you get to the top of the rim, you can look all the way across the canyon. You can sort of see where you came from.
There's a faint line of a trail that you can see.
Yeah, and you're like,
hard.
It's nothing you can describe to look down and across, and as far as you can see, that's where you've walked from.
It was very hard to wrap my mind around and comprehend that I actually was able to do it.
Yeah.
So that's another very big lesson that I learned from the trip, is you can definitely do way more than you thought you could. If I had seen that and I had zero preparation, I could not imagine starting at the South Rim, then looking across at what I'm going to have to do. Because with the North Rim, it's just so...
It's a lot of trees.
Yeah.
And you sort of come through the forest and you're zigzagging through the trees. You don't necessarily have that
wide open
distant perspective.
You can't see what you're actually doing. And it's not laid out in front of you. So if I was doing south to north, it would have been I would have been I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I would have been intimidated for sure.
Yeah, and our 2,000 miles a year, that's kind of a cool goal to have. What kind of realistic mileage could I hike every year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is 200 miles a year something that's realistic, or 100 miles a year? That's a...
Make a goal for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because hiking's one of those things that takes a little time to get to a spot to go. There's lots of day hiking trails, but you have to sort of all right, where am I going to go hike today? What is there, a state park, or is there a local trail? But you can go put in 3 or 4 miles, and it sort of forces you to get into that same moment where you're disconnected from your phone, you're enjoying nature, and you're walking, and you're getting some exercise, and so all the good things are happening.
Thinking back, I feel immensely proud of myself for being able to do that.